And, it's going to be basically, again, I'd be shocked if this is not a one-topic day. Maybe I give you a little something different at 5 o'clock to break it up a little bit, but I would think we'll be on this theme here for the most of the afternoon. All right, number two, as far as tonight goes, first off, the Baylor-Houston game was a bore. I mean, I'd be very interested to see what the UCLA rating was. You would think they'd get a great rating for that game, but it had a lousy lead in. First off, the game was terrible, the Baylor-Houston game, and secondly, it's an hour and a half before they play the second game. So it wasn't an hour and a half, it was a good hour. So as a result, it's a lot of standalone time before you get to the game. But the game was a long game and a great game. So I would think eyeballs got to that set in the course of the night. And it was also on CBS, not TBS, which also helps. I'll say, Eddie, if you can get us the. And Nance, Raff, and Hill did a great job. We'll see if we can get some a number here on that game a little later on. Now, listen, it's a 4.5-point spread. I would think that Baylor will be competitive in the game. I think Baylor's best advantage tonight. You can make an argument that maybe Gonzaga a little tired. I remember that Krzyzewski once told us that after he played Michigan State and got to a rugged second game of the night, Final Four moment in St. Petersburg against Michigan State, and of course sitting there waiting was UConn, who had played earlier in the evening, and maybe they were a little flat going up against UConn, and then UConn beat them, which was a major upset. That was the Elton Brand Langdon team, Richard Hamilton on UConn. And I remember that maybe playing that second game hurt them a little bit. And I guess you can make the same argument here. Baylor didn't have to do too much to bury Houston by 19. They were long in bed and relaxed by the time that UCLA and by the time Gonzaga got out of the building there on Saturday night. Their emotion and the energy and everything else, the lateness, that might help them a little bit. I do think these are college kids. That's a factor. But overall, I find it very difficult and hard to believe to think that Baylor is going to win this game tonight. Gonzaga's got a lot of momentum right now, you would think. Gonzaga's better than Baylor based on the size. They have some other ways they can score down low with Timmy. Baylor doesn't have that. I think Baylor's guards will be, are good. But listen, nobody says that Gonzaga's guards aren't good because they got the Florida transfer. Obviously, they got Ayai, and they got sitting there with Suggs. Overall, probably a little less than the Baylor guards, but still good. And then they got Timmy down low. Now, Baylor doesn't, they play nobody Gonzaga. They have no bench. So they don't have a bench. They got 5 players. They do not have a good bench. So if there's foul trouble, that could be a factor. They only played 7 guys the other night, and one of the guys played 4 minutes. So they do not have a good bench. And foul trouble could be a problem. They got the one big kid who comes off, and they had that little guard coming off, but not a big bench. So, I mean, that is something you'd have to consider a little bit. But it's hard for me to believe that Gonzaga is not going to finish it off here and win a championship tonight. Hard to believe. I would think they'd win the game. I think they're better than Baylor. I think if they played 10 times, they'd win, 4 games to 1, maybe 4 games to 2. But they wouldn't play a 7th game. Their size, I think, is a problem for Baylor. Baylor does not have an inside game. They shoot a lot of threes. Their offense can get stale. They can dribble too much out of the perimeter and just basically watch and stand around where one of those 3 guards is dribbling all night. I think that plays right into Gonzaga's hands. I think Gonzaga's better. So I'd be a little worried about Gonzaga having a lot left in the tank. These are college kids, and they played the game 36 hours ago. An all-time classic, which took a lot of juice, a lot of energy, a lot of emotion to get out of that game. So that is a factor. And don't forget Duke UConn, 20-something years ago when Calhoun won his first championship. I know that was a factor. Both coaches thought it was a factor. UConn didn't have a whole hell of a lot. Duke didn't have a whole hell of a lot left against UConn, and they lost a close game. And they were heavily favored in that game. And UConn was very good. That was a good UConn team. But, let's face it. Duke had, Brand, William Avery, McGetty. They had Langdon. That was a very good Duke team, and Duke lost. They were favored to win. I don't know what the line may have been, but they were favored to win, and they had to, basically maul Michigan State to get to the championship game. And it was physical, took a little something out of them, and I think they're a little flat. And I think that helped UConn. I was thinking about that at the end of this game the other night. Well, geez, Gonzaga game's over at 11:30 at night, and Gonzaga's going to go right back out there, less than 48 hours later against the Baylor team that didn't break a sweat against Houston, 45-20 at the half. So I did consider that. But I do think that Gonzaga, it seems to be their year. You love the inside presence with Timmy. They should get a little bit more out of Kispert tonight. Didn't do much the other day. You can make the argument they had a very soft schedule, in the course of the year. Never really had to work too hard. I think they're relatively fresh, despite the other night. They've had a pretty easy tournament, despite the other night. So I would think Gonzaga would win the game. So it's a 4.5 point line. I would give up the 4.5. It was me. I would give up the 4.5. It's hard for me to believe that Gonzaga is going to come all this way for the second time in 4 years, playing a championship game off that all-time classic and not get the job done tonight. NC State beat Marquette. After they beat UCLA after they beat Louisville in overtime, they won their next game too. You know what? I might be wrong. Yeah, I think they did. The year they lost to, I don't think that was the same year. It may have been the following year when they beat Louisville. And Wooden's last year when they beat Louisville. And then, of course, Kentucky beat Syracuse, and then UCLA beat Kentucky. They won the next game, too. Most of the time you win that great semifinal game, you should have enough left in the tank. North Carolina in 57, triple overtime against Michigan State, won the next game. Most of the time they beat Kansas. Most of the time you get through. Duke, of course, beat Kentucky, won the whole thing. Duke beat Vegas in that classic, and then they came out the next day and beat Kansas by 40 points. Most of the time you can get through and win the next game. Most of the time. So I'll pick Gonzaga. And then we'll sit there and rank them and where we want to stand with Gonzaga. Some today and some tomorrow. Lots to do. Your calls are next. Galestein's got a sports bite. The Great Bob here on Mad Dog Unleashed.